Have you ever wondered if God has chosen you for something special? Maybe you felt a pull toward a higher purpose, or noticed a series of events in your life that seem too perfectly aligned to be mere coincidence. Many believers struggle with this question, wondering if they've been chosen by God for a specific mission or calling. The truth is, the Bible gives us several signs that can help us understand if we've been chosen by God. And today we're going to explore 7 of those key signs. To be chosen by God is an extraordinary privilege. It means being set apart for a divine purpose, called to live a life that reflects God's love and truth. But how do you know if this is true for you? Let's explore these signs and reflect on what they might reveal about your journey with God. 1. You have been called to a higher purpose. One of the clearest signs that God has chosen you is the sense of being called to something greater than yourself. This calling can come in many forms. You might feel a deep desire to serve others, a passion for sharing the gospel, or a heart for bringing healing and hope to those in need. In Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." When you feel called to a higher purpose, it's often a sign that God has chosen you for His special work. God has designed each of us with unique gifts and talents. When He calls us, He aligns our skills and passions with the needs of His kingdom. Maybe you've noticed that you're drawn to certain causes or missions that resonate deeply with your spirit. This is not an accident. God's calling often manifests as a persistent tug at your heart, encouraging you to step out in faith and embrace the purpose He has for you. 2. Your life mirrors biblical events. Have you ever noticed that your life seems to follow a pattern similar to stories in the Bible? Maybe you've experienced a Red Sea moment where it seemed like there was no way out, but God provided a miraculous solution. Or perhaps you've gone through a period of waiting, much like Joseph did in prison before he was elevated to a position of power. When our lives begin to reflect biblical events, it can be a sign that God is actively working in and through us. These moments remind us that the same God who parted the Red Sea, who raised the dead, and who delivered His people from impossible situations, is the same God working in our lives today. If you've noticed these parallels in your own life, take heart. It's likely that God has chosen you for something significant, just as He chose the heroes of the Bible. 3. You feel an unseen support system. When you are chosen by God, you often sense an invisible hand guiding and supporting you, even in the most difficult of times. This could be through a sense of peace that surpasses understanding, or the presence of people who come into your life at just the right moment to offer help and encouragement. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." When you are chosen, God ensures that you're never walking alone. He sends you the support you need, whether that comes in the form of friends, family, mentors, or even supernatural strength to keep moving forward. Have you ever faced a situation where, despite all odds, you came out victorious? That's often a sign of God's unseen hand at work in your life. 4. Spiritual discernment becomes sharper. Another sign that you're chosen by God is the gift of spiritual discernment. Those who are chosen often develop a heightened sensitivity to God's voice and guidance. You might begin to recognize God's promptings more clearly, sensing when something is not aligned with His will or when He is calling you to act in a specific way. In John 10:27, Jesus says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." If you find that you are increasingly able to distinguish God's voice from the noise of the world, it's a sign that you're walking closely with Him and that He has chosen you to carry out His purpose. Discernment helps us stay aligned with God's will, avoiding distractions and pitfalls that could lead us away from His path. 5. You're drawn to people who need help. Those chosen by God often feel a deep, unshakable desire to help others, especially those who are hurting or lost. This is a reflection of God's heart. Jesus said in Matthew 25:40, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." If you constantly find yourself reaching out to people in need, offering a listening ear, or providing help in practical ways, this could be a sign that God has chosen you to reflect His love to the world. Your compassion for others is a reflection of the love God has placed in your heart. Being chosen often means stepping into roles where you can serve others, not for personal gain, but because you feel called to be a vessel of God's mercy and grace. Whether it's through prayer, acts of kindness, or simply being present for someone, you are fulfilling God's purpose in your life. 6. Your gifts are being used for God's glory. When God chooses you, He doesn't just leave you to figure things out on your own. Instead, He equips you with the necessary gifts and abilities to carry out His purpose. These gifts might be spiritual, like the gift of prophecy, healing, or teaching, or they might be more practical, like leadership, administration, or creativity. Whatever your gifts are, God has given them to you for a reason. In 1 Peter 4:10, we're told, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." Have you noticed that your gifts are being used in ways that bring glory to God? This is one of the clearest signs that you've been chosen by Him. Your talents, whether big or small, are all part of His grand design, and when you use them to serve others, you are fulfilling your calling as one of God's chosen people. 7. You experience miracle after miracle. Those chosen by God often witness extraordinary events in their lives, miracles, answered prayers, and divine interventions that leave no doubt that God is at work. These miracles might not always be dramatic, but they're often undeniable. Whether it's a financial breakthrough, healing from an illness, or an unexpected opportunity, these events are signs that God's hand is upon you. Psalm 77:14 declares, "You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples." When you experience miracle after miracle, it's often a confirmation that God is with you and that He has chosen you for something greater. These moments remind us that God is not distant or disconnected from our lives. He is actively involved, orchestrating events to fulfill His purpose for us. If you've recognized any of these signs in your own life, take a moment to reflect on how God might be calling you today. Being chosen by God doesn't mean you're perfect or that you have all the answers. It simply means that God has set you apart for His purpose, and He is equipping you for the journey ahead. Whether you're just beginning to sense His call or have been walking in your purpose for years, remember that God's plans for you are good, and He will provide everything you need to fulfill them. So, If you feel that God has chosen you, embrace it. Step out in faith, trust in His timing, and use the gifts He has given you to make a difference in the world. You are part of God's plan, and He has called you for a reason. Never doubt that. Thank you for watching. If this message has encouraged you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that will help you live out your faith.